Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about a very eye-popping inclusion on Fani Willis's witness list, one Lin Wood. First, let's go over who this guy is and why everyone was stunned to see Willis's assertion. Though then, as you're going to hear, I'm not nearly as confident as others seem to be that he's actually going to be a witness. Okay, Lin Wood, on the whole ladder of lying and crazy Trump folks is the very bottom. He's a total, aluminum foil kind of guy. He says Trump won the election with 70% of the votes, but was foiled by an elaborate plot with the combined forces of the Chinese intelligence services, communists, and yes, Republican officials. He has been repeatedly disciplined for his total bullshit claims in court. And indeed, in Georgia, he just retired his license rather than even try to defend. He called for the execution by firing squad of Vice President Pence. He is really out there in, crazy land. So the notion that he would be called by Fani Willis and the Fulton County prosecution obviously got people's attention. Now, the context in which this came up was Fani Willis had filed a motion, and it noted that there are many possible witnesses who have been represented by other folks or have represented different people who matter. James Raffensperger, the Secretary of State who fields the all-important January 2nd call with Trump, is one of them. He actually is someone whom Wood has also made, crazy violent claims about, along with Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia. Anyway, Willis comes forward and says, look, there's these, different lawyers who I think may have conflicts of interest. You're not permitted, once you've represented someone, to represent someone else whose interests are somewhat opposed. You have to be able to give vigorous, aggressive representation to both parties. This coming up repeatedly, especially because Trump has been funding many of the lawyers sort of all around the various prosecutions. And what Willis is saying is, let's have a hearing where you really make sure that the witnesses understand the potential conflict and their ability to have other lawyers and the like. In the course of that motion, she names Lin Wood as someone who had previously had counsel that could be in conflict, and she calls him a witness for the state, and that's what gets everybody totally agog. Because if you think about it, there are teeny little things you could call a guy like Lin Wood for, perhaps, but it just doesn't matter. Whatever you call him for, you put his credibility at issue. Why would Fani Willis want to have, a 30-second or a 30-minute or a 3-hour examination of Lin Wood followed by a cross-examination that just, completely leaves blood on the floor, pointing out that this state witness, who the state is trying to get you to believe, is the biggest crackpot in the Western world. I personally don't see it. I can't imagine any discrete piece of evidence that Lin Wood alone knows. So what's going on here? Lin Wood did testify in front of the special grand jury, who, in fact, recommended he be indicted. And they opted, this was in the long period where we were waiting for her to bring her charges, there were some 30 people, and it includes Lin Wood, who Fani Willis decided not to charge at the end of the day. But those people had all testified, and I think when Fani Willis, at the request of or order of Judge McAfee in Fulton County, told about the overall length of time and numbers of witnesses. And I think you just, as a matter of course, put in everyone who testified before in the grand jury, whose information you've turned over to the defense. That doesn't mean you're forced to call them at trial. You wouldn't want to, a judge would be maybe out of joint and think you're playing games if you give a witness list of 100 and call 5 off them. But the idea that you give a witness list of 50 and call 40 or whatever is understood. Moreover, on the other hand, if someone isn't on the list and you wish to add them, you'll have the defense jumping up and down saying, we're not ready, we need a continuance, etc. So I think in making this motion about other attorneys and their conflicts, just as a matter of caution and course, they tentatively or provisionally designate anyone who testified before the special grand jury as a witness for the state. It doesn't mean, I think, that Lin Wood would be called by the prosecution. We'll know soon enough, but I'm here to predict that, in fact, it won't happen because whatever you're wanting to use him for, you if anything, you certainly find someone else, or you just forget about it rather than having such an opening for the defense to stand up and say, look what kind of quality people the DA put in front of you. So I think this is about the short-term effort to be sure that defendants are properly represented by counsel that don't have conflicts, as has already come up in other trials, and not a bona fide effort to have Mr. Tinfoil himself, Lin Wood, as an actual witness. So we'll see about that. Especially because, in theory, October 23rd, a little more than a month from now, Chesbrough and Powell, their jury begins to be picked, and we'll see the whole corpus of evidence, because they, like everyone else, have been charged with a RICO, and that means the evidence, as the DA said to Judge McAfee, is the same for all. So my prediction here is you will not see Lin Wood called by the prosecution, and for the reasons that made everybody sit up and take notice when his name appeared there. Just too crazy to even try to use, even if you needed him, which I doubt they do. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.